Finish First Media production team, website, whatever you want to call us. That's what we are. Today is August 21st of 2020, the year of terrible. My name is Austin, co-host number 1, joined today by co-host number 2,
Brandon Alessio.
And we'd just like to welcome everybody in today's show. We got a lot to talk about. We will first be going over wide receiver rankings 1 through 20, including our best wide receivers, our favorite wide receivers. We will also then be going over different mailbag questions, players to avoid, and then we're going to wrap up. So, random question for Brandon as we start every show. Brandon, what is your favorite artificial flavor and why?
These are not pre-scripted. You might pre-script them, but I don't know.
Sometimes, depends.
I don't know. For what? Just in general?
Just in general. I want a favorite and a least favorite. I know that was not specifically noted at the beginning, but we're going for a little bit of everything here.
Artificial cotton candy is pretty good for just about everything it touches.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's the best, but it's one of my favorites. It's hard to come up with the best. Worst. That's a great question. Banana?
I think there's a pretty clear-cut worst artificial.
Maybe banana?
What? Have you never had the runts?
Those are fine.
Or slush?
I don't like the banana slush.
Okay. All right.
What was the clear cut for you?
I'm going to say, in a very clear-cut way, I think fruit punch is honestly the worst artificial flavor.
It's not good.
The worst Gatorade.
It's so chalky, the Gatorade.
I'll give Hawaiian Punch a pass. But just in general, fruit punch, anything is like my least favorite option.
I think that's just to say how great Hawaiian Punch is. They're able to make it good.
When was the last time it's the Tootsie Roll of candies.
Whatever flavor the Tootsie Roll is the worst artificial flavor.
I don't even want to talk
I don't even know what that is.
That's like chocolate, though, so I don't want to.
Is a Tootsie Roll chocolate?
It's like a really awful caramel chocolate mix. It's just bad.
I remember when I was a kid.
Caramel chocolate taffy or something.
When I was a kid, I couldn't lose one of my teeth. And I chomped down one of those giant sticks. I chomped down the stick.
The Tootsie Roll stick, I'm assuming.
Yes. Okay. And I yanked it out. And I remember I didn't even notice. It's like tasted blood. I'm like, what is going on? And I looked down at my Tootsie Roll and my big back tooth was stuck.
So what was the point of this bite? Was it to... I mean, it sounds like you bit and then didn't chew. So what was the point here?
I just bit.
Just to bite.
That is true, because I remember it came out on the thing. But if it came out on the thing, I literally just bit down on it and yanked it out for no reason.
Like, I have no idea. Did you chomp back down and like, oh, why is it...
This was probably two decades ago. So when I bit down, I probably was like, oh, that hurt. And pulled it out and I looked down like, oh, my tooth.
Okay. But you made it sound like it was a very...
No, I did.
I just happened to chew and then remove it from my mouth.
Yeah, this was about 20 years ago, so I don't remember fully. But yeah, that makes more sense. It probably hurt.
All right, and I would like to apologize to the audience. This is a fantasy football podcast, so we will be getting into the fantasy football portion of the podcast right now.
I just thought that was a good nugget.
Just a fun intro. Oh, I appreciated it. We're just making sure the audience is aware that this is not a mess around show. This is a serious production.
Thank you, and leave a like, please. If you like Fruit Punch, leave a like. And if
or
you don't,
dislike, because
leave a like too.
This isn't a Fruit Punch kind of podcast.
No,
you can take that Fruit Punch and go home.
Fair enough. I agree.
You're the only one showing up to that party. So we are going to start today, like we mentioned, we're going to count down to 1. So Brandon, will you go ahead and give us your number 20 wide receiver for this year? Again, like we always caveat, I'm doing it before we get into it for once. This is PPR rankings, 1 point per reception. If you're looking for standard or if you're looking for a PPR rankings, they are available on our website at
finishfirstmedia.com. That's finishfirstmedia.com.
Incredible. Brandon, start us out.
So my number 20 is Keenan Allen. Now I think he could be a diamond in the rough. Last season alone, he was number 2 in receptions, number 5 in yards, number 6 in red zone catches, and number 9 in yards after catch. But there have been some injury concerns in the past, which I'm not really worried about that. But he is getting a little older, so it might be something to be a little concerned about. My big thing, which I think is a lot of people's big thing, is the QB concerns. We have not seen... First off, we don't know who's throwing him the ball. And second off, neither of the options seem like great options. Mm-hmm. So that being said, I'm not too excited. He could be really good, or he's one of those guys who's high risk, high reward, but he could also bust pretty high. That's what the high risk means.
Where does he rank for you on the has heart scale?
He's got heart. I'll give him that.
Is he an elite player with heart?
Yeah, I'd say so. He's got a lot of grit. A lot of grit. But that being said, it seems like his ADP is number 54 overall. And that's around it's a couple higher than T.Y. Hilton. And I like him better than T.Y. Hilton. And it's even behind guys like DK Metcalf and DJ Chark. So I think that's a decent spot for him. Maybe he's even a little undervalued this season.
I will have it noted that he will come up on my rankings later on in this program.
I figured so. It's just, last season he had an elite season. So the fact that he's not being drafted as an elite player is always potential value. But it's just there's a few uncertainties there. Number 19 might be a hot take. I'm not sure. But that is Terry McLaurin. He had a really good rookie campaign last year. On a per 16 game basis, he had nearly 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns, which is very good. He was a big surprise, and I liked him a lot. He's the number one receiver on their team now, and I'd hope the QB play would have gotten a little better. I know Dwayne Haskins isn't incredible, but I feel like he's going to make a couple strides coming into the next year. So I feel like Terry McLaurin he's a very underrated pick, I think. Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
No, I was debating whether we were going to talk about Alex Smith, but I think anybody who's seen him walk or seen the leg
that hurts, because I saw the video where it said he was cleared for football activities, and I certainly hope that doesn't mean football.
Can he run?
Like, he was like stomped. Like,
it's like he's having trouble walking out of his house.
And yeah, this is
I'm laughing not as somebody who's happy
this is
about
no
this.
disrespect.
This is like, dude.
This is concern. This is not respect. Because that's what I was gonna say. His leg doesn't look straight. He goes like limping around, but then he somehow got cleared for practice.
And you got to have that whatever was on his leg full time, walking around your house.
I heard they took muscles from his calf and put him down there.
Did you see the picture of his leg?
Skin. Yeah.
When after it got infected,
it was like black.
Oh no! After that, when it was just muscle and bone, his bone.
No.
Oh, you should look that one up. It's one of the wildest pictures you'll ever see.
And that's the thing. I certainly hope football activities don't involve football, because that
might be kind of a hard thing.
I know, but I don't know the guy. He seems like an alright guy, but just as a person, I don't want him to get hit in the legs consistently after seeing him walk around like that.
I'm gonna remember those 5-yard dump offs very fondly.
Fair enough. Let's see.
They were under 5 yards.
Yeah.
Benefit of the doubt with the leg.
Number 18, we have Devontae Parker. He probably was the most underrated receiver last year. I mean, you could say they're empty numbers because the team sucked, and which is fair, but what's changed? I mean, his team still sucks. So I feel like last season he had over 1,200 yards, which is number 5 in the league, and he was number 4 in touchdowns with 9.
I will push back just very briefly and say that it looked like Fitzmagic had taken a leave of absence from the Dolphins today. It looked like it was announced. And I'm not saying this hurts Devontae Parker extremely, but I see a world where this could potentially, you know what I mean? Like, Fitzy's bombing it all the time and moving the chain. And I think even if you throw Tua in there, which I think Tua is going to be still serviceable, you just have to wonder if the volume gets hurt. I was just wondering if Fitzmagic not being there would make you feel better, the same, or worse about him.
It's hard to tell because I think Tua will be better.
Well, this year or
this year?
Okay,
because I just think he will. Fitzmagic wasn't even that great last year, and he still got him 1,200. Like,
yeah, but he went to Harvard, didn't you hear?
Yeah, he's a smart man. Don't get me wrong.
Everybody says that, so
they do all the time.
I felt obligated to mention it.
They mention it every time they mention his name.
There's a couple players.
I guess he was low-key underrated too last year. 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. That's not fantastic, but it's definitely not bad. It's middle of the road, maybe a little below average.
To the heart meter.
Oh, he's got heart.
Number 1 on my heart.
He's got heart.
I think he might rank number 1 for me.
The journeyman, yeah, he led his league in rushing and in passing, something that only he and Lamar Jackson can say. Him and another MVP candidate. So
isn't he like 37?
Yeah. That's
incredible.
That's a fun fact. 2 quarterbacks led their teams in rushing and passing. It's Fitzpatrick and the MVP.
It's
Lamar
absolutely
Jackson.
astounding that a
37
or 38.
He's 37, but okay. Granted, if we look at it, it's just because his team was
he didn't have 1,000 yards.
Horrible. He had 240.
Well, so the fact that Kenyon Drake was traded, so that's their number 1 option. After
8 games through the season, though.
Yeah, so, but I mean, I get it.
If he were to get 243 through the first 8 games, he'd be on track for like a 500-yard season as a starting running back. That is terrible.
I get it. It's just though when you trade your number 1 halfway through, that's going to happen. to some extent.
I feel like Stevie Wonder could stumble into 250 yards as a starting running back.
I don't know why we needed to take it there, but okay.
Fair enough. Let's see here. But yeah, I guess he was a little underrated too. I didn't even notice. I thought he was horrible last year, but apparently not. But Devontae Parker, he had 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, which is fantastic. The Dolphins ranked number 4 in passes, which is a pretty fun fact because I never thought that. But when you look at the running back situation, it makes perfect sense. And the fact they're terrible, so they had to throw the ball a lot. So I think that he'll still be good. Will he put up top 5 in yards, top 4 in touchdowns again? Probably not. But that being said, his ADP, I believe, is around pick 70 to 80. At least this week it is, because the ADP set I look at, which is Fantasy Football Calculator, calculates through a certain amount through this week, basically. But he is, I'm scrolling now, he is very far back. I went too far. Yeah, he's number 69. Guys
nice.
like, yeah, nice, I agree. But yeah, I think he's really nice, and I think he'll be fine. Let's see here. My next one.
What is it? We're dying to know.
I know. My next one is Calvin Ridley.
Oh.
People say that he had a disappointing sophomore season. His rookie year was 820 yards and 10 touchdowns. His sophomore year was 866 and 7. However, he played 3 less games in last year. So on a 16-game basis, it was 1,109, which I think is really good. And Ryan had an off year too. And I could see him taking more targets with Julio getting older in age as well. So yeah, I think he's a guy who has a pretty high floor, all things considered. DJ Moore is my number 16. I am not big on DJ Moore, and I'm not nearly as big as other people. And that's simply he was fantastic last year, but simply because Teddy Bridgewater. Sorry, I totally blanked. All because of Teddy Bridgewater. I expect a lot of short passes, obviously. Another fun fact, the Carolina Panthers actually ranked number 2 in pass attempts, which is something you probably wouldn't have expected, but they did. I don't expect that again, though. I think they're going to try to run the ball a lot and try to emulate the style that the Saints used with Bridgewater. I'm not big on him, but he had decent yard after catch, which I think is good for him, especially with Teddy Bridgewater. And yeah, let's see here. That, I believe, is my 5. 1, 2, 3. That's my 5. I'd love to hear yours.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go through mine. My number 20 is going to be kind of like you started, Calvin Ridley. I think I might have actually gone one too many on the last episode and released this one. I just see him having a nice year this year, especially with, I think I used this analogy on the last episode. I see there being a little bit of a bridging of the gap between him and Julio. I still think Julio is going to be the primary guy in that offense, but I'm really expecting Ridley to take a nice step forward.
Is there any way you could remind us who was your 20 from last episode?
My 20?
You said you skipped one last episode?
No, I did Calvin Ridley last episode.
Oh, okay.
So I think Julio is going to take, not a step back, but as he gets a little older and Ridley gets a little more established, I think he's going to take over the role a little bit more.
And Julio's so good, a step back is 1,300 yards.
I know, yeah. He's still looking good.
That's how good he is.
I think the Falcons are going to have a nice rebound this year. And I think that their offense is just going to be clicking a lot better than it was in the last year, and they did finish pretty hot. And so I expect really to be a very large part of the offense and continue building on what he's been able to put up. My number 19 is going to be A.J. Brown. I know a lot of people aren't very excited about A.J. Brown per se. He had a beast rookie season last year, and I think that he can do it again. The Titans are just seen as a run-first team, and so it's kind of hard to put a receiver on a team like that ranked very high. But I think that he looked good enough, and his yards after catch were incredible. If you look at a highlight reel of him, he was breaking some insane long plays off, and he just looked very good. It looked like he was winning the ball at the catch point a lot. And I expect a lot of the same, especially for how successful they are on the play action and the downfield throwing off of that. And so I'm expecting him in season 2 to put a lot more together and just be better than he was even this year. So, or at least similar.
For a full PPR season, do his low reception numbers worry you at all?
Not. I mean, there's a reason he's ranked 19 and not 9. I mean, I think he gets a nice bump from, how much downfield receiving he gets, but I would say it's kind of built in. His lack of, a million targets is what's keeping him at 19 versus the other type of scenario. My number 18 is going to be Kenny Golladay. I think
that's scalding hot.
It is?
I'm feeling a little warm over here, yeah.
You think he should be ranked
worse
than that?
It's scalding hot in the sense where...
Or you think he's like a top 5?
His ADP is number 7.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, it worries me a little bit. I know that Matt Stafford's going to be back this year, and that offense should be a lot better.
They looked really good when he was in last year.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that having a healthy Marvin Jones is going to kind of take a lot of work, and not take more so, but split a little bit of the work up. And I think that the offense is just going to click a little better. They used it's kind of funny if you look at their receiving or their rushing stats from last year. Mm-hmm. I think like 8 or 9 different running backs had over 10 carries. It was just really wild to see comparatively to the rest of the.
I think at that point they were just throwing anything at the wall and seeing what would stick.
They essentially were, but I think with the addition of the new rookie they brought in, I believe it was Swift and Kerryon Johnson, both been good at the pass catching role. I think it's going to be more receptions for them, more established running game in it. And I know this is the kind of thing that we say every year and it never happens, but I think it could allow for the Lions to actually have an offense that's semi-balanced. Again, it never is, but.
Their offense is never really, balanced, but I say it's never really the problem.
They're always extremely pass heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're always down because their defense is bad. And you'd like to think that, like we've said before on podcasts during the running back episode, name, 2 good Lions running backs from the last 15 years. I'll wait.
Joik Bell.
You know what I mean? Oh, I
legend.
Loved me some Joik.
Javid Best.
Yeah, it proving my point. So, that's kind of the thing I'm a little worried about with them. But I still think Kenny Golladay is going to have a great season. I just am a little worried for those reasons. And he wins a lot of contended balls. I believe it was him, Mike Evans, and I believe there was like a 3-way tie
for
a lot. The most contended catches. So, you'd like to think that's going to continue, but if you're kind of just throwing it up, some years you can have, are going to be better than others with that. My number 17, this might be another hot take, is going to be Adam Thielen. So I know he was hurt last year, coming off that beautiful 400-yard season. But
yeah, that was tough.
I don't know if they have. I know the rookie's going to help them out a little bit, but I don't know if they have much outside of him necessarily. I think it was Justin Jefferson's the new guy to the offense, and I believe he's a little bit more of a downfield threat versus Thielen. The saving grace for Thielen is going to be the over the middle kind of Julian Edelman role of I'm just going to catch the ball 100 times and get 10 yards a catch, but. I still think he's going to be very good. I just worry a little bit, especially with his health. I know that I'm supposed to project these out like they're going to be healthy all year, but I would, if there was an over/under of games played at 13, I'd bet the under. So, that's probably actually a perfect line right there. But yeah, I think you get the point.
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried just about his overall versatility and can he be the guy with no big second option. And so number 16, is going to be Amari Cooper. I know that he's very good every single year. I expect him to be very good, and I expect the Cowboys to be very good. But they just keep getting more mouths to feed there with more talent. And I think Michael Gallup's going to be better, as we mentioned last episode. I think he posted more yards than Cooper this year. And so
on a per game basis, I know for a fact. I'm not sure.
It was either it may have been more catches, or he had something.
He had more targets, I think.
There was something. It might have. They were really close statistically. I think Cooper had quite a few more touchdowns, but I expect him to be, a relatively safe play and still a high ceiling kind of guy. But I just expect with him and Lamb and everybody else running around there, I expect the offense, and obviously Zeke's still catching a lot of balls. And Tony Pollard probably getting a little bit bigger of a chunk of the offense. I'm expecting, him to be more a little mellowed out as opposed to, the other guys that we have in front of him who might be the biggest option or the, most heavily relied on option.
He's also frustrating because he'll put a 30-point game up in between two less than 5.
Yeah, and it kind of looks at times that he takes plays off.
It's like, God, come on.
And so he's kind of a little frustrating one, but I would love him on my team. So
see, I'd rather have a guy who gets me 12 a week than a guy who gets me 3, 30, and then 3 again. Like, I guess most times I would, maybe if I need some points, but he seems notorious for that. But was that your last one?
That is my number 16, yep. And so with that, we're going to move into the next portion here.
For the people.
And that's going to be our first, are we going to call it listener questions, or are we going to call it...
for the people.
Found questions.
Listener questions. Let's see here. The people have asked.
Ooh.
All 3, this is actually very fitting, considering what we were just speaking of. And the question is, all 3 Cowboys receivers are values right now at their ADP. which one is the best bargain? Now, let me just start this by saying Cooper is being drafted at number 39 overall and wide receiver
Amongst
14th.
receivers? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Wide receiver 14. Michael Gallup is being drafted, at number wide receiver 31 in overall 77. And CeeDee Lamb is being drafted at wide receiver 39 in overall 101. So wide receiver 14, 31, and 39. And this listener wants to know which one is the best bargain. No, I'd say, just to start, I'd say they're all bargains. Especially for how much that offense passes the ball and how these are the top 3 guys. Cooper, I think, is wide receiver 14 is fine. I think he's worth a little more than that, so I think he's a steal. But Michael Gallup, even though he dropped a lot of passes and isn't a red zone threat, wide receiver 31 is super disrespectful.
I think Gallup and Lamb even are.
Yeah.
I think those two are the primary value picks.
Yeah, absolutely. But Cooper's not a bad pick at 14 either.
No,
wide receiver 14
How I
to
like
39.
to draft is I like to take people where the offense is good. You know, that's why you get nervous about taking. I know I didn't
Terry McLaurin.
specifically mention this, but yeah, the McLaurins, the AJ Browns. It's just like
DJ Chark.
if they're not going to throw very much, and
But actually, if you looked at it, a lot of the bad teams have thrown the most. Like if we go, I'm on the wrong slide. Like the Dolphins threw the second most in the league.
Maybe I just mean there's a difference though.
I'm sorry,
between
Dolphins threw number 4.
having the most receiving yards and throwing the most times.
I guess.
I mean, when you think of teams, the old school Packers, they were getting 1 million yards when they had, even look at the Chiefs. You look at the Cowboys. When you have teams that are putting up constant yards, it's a lot easier for them to.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You just want the guaranteed passes.
I agree.
Where and I think that offense can support 3 guys to some extent. Like I said, it's going to be a little crowded. I mean, Randall Cobb still put together quite a few yards last year, and obviously CeeDee Lamb's better than Randall Cobb. So, I mean, I think there's a role for him. I don't expect him to get 1,000 yards, assuming nobody else gets hurt, but I still think he's going to have a...
See, because I expect the other 2 to get the 1,000 yards.
Yeah, he's going to be the number 3. So, I expect him, obviously, to get over 500, but I wouldn't expect him to get 1,000 or relatively close. I mean, it depends what relatively means, but I don't expect him to be necessarily close either, so...
Very well.
Like you said, I think none of them are bad values. Specifically, Gallup and Lamb are obviously the best values, and I'd love to have them there at their ADP.
Sounds good. That was an excellent question and an even better answer.
By which one of us?
You.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Now we are going to move on to our next portion, which is running backs wide receivers, ranked number 14 through number 10.
Number 15 through number 11.
Did I do it again?
You did it
Every
again.
episode. You just need to start doing this.
All right, number 15. This might be a lukewarm take. Maybe not hot, but definitely not a cold one either. And that is Cortland Sutton. Last season, Denver ranked actually number 25 in pass attempts, which is something I didn't know. However, Cortland Sutton, he still was number 15 in targets. So the fact that they didn't pass the ball a lot didn't seem to affect him much. And I feel like this year their offense is going to be a lot better, and it's going to be a dark horse offense. So I feel like their pass attempts will go up as well. So I think his targets will. Jerry Jeudy did show up, but I think Cortland Sutton is still the guy there. He had a vast improvement, again, from his season prior. He had a really good sophomore season. And I think that Drew Lock is one of the better young quarterbacks. People are talking a lot about the other rookies from last year, but I think Drew Lock kind of gets forgotten in there. He was easily one of the better ones. So I'm excited about him. I'm excited about the entire Broncos offense, especially with Melvin Gordon joining too, Jerry Jeudy. We have Cortland Sutton coming back again to be good. And they're not starting Joe Flacco at the season. So I think this is a good year for them, especially offensively.
He's still in the league. Every time
Unfortunately,
time I hear that, I'm surprised.
People are paying this man money.
Can you guess what team Joe Flacco is on?
Did he change teams this offseason?
Yes.
Okay, so he's not on the Broncos.
This one, when I first saw it, I was like shocked.
Is it the Browns?
Oh. No, he is actually on the New York Jets.
How did I not hear this?
I didn't either. I just saw it somewhere.
I mean, I know he's no good, but
I might have clicked on his name on like ESPN or something. I was like, huh? It's like, he's on there.
Sam Darnold had some real competition this year, it seems.
Well, I like it better than what they were. He's better than whatever was after him last year. So,
man,
I don't even remember. That's how bad it was.
He's just sticking around way too long. That.
I just think of Luke McCown whenever, or is it Josh McCown?
I think it was Josh McCown.
I don't remember. That's when I think of a backup. Him and Geno Smith. Mark Sanchez. A lot of good quarterbacks running through New York.
Speaking about disappointments, number 14, we have Juju Smith-Schuster.
I thought you were going to say my name. Okay, go ahead.
No, we have Juju Smith. It would have worked too, but we have Juju Smith-Schuster. Let's be real. He was absolutely dreadful last year. Granted, the whole team was dreadful, but he was probably one of, if not the biggest bust of last year. He had a great rookie season, a fantastic sophomore season, and just a tragic third year.
Someone who owns, we don't forget. I owned him last year.
He's one of those guys.
People don't forget.
He's had 2 out of 3 years where he's exceeded all expectations and one where he hasn't lived up to them. And I think when he didn't live up to the expectations, it wasn't truly his fault. So, I mean, he certainly probably could have done more. But I think that this year should be a bounce back. He has top 5 receiver potential, so that's why I'm drafting him at receiver 14, just because how truly dreadful that last one is. I am a little worried because our reports that Big Ben is seeing some regression, especially with the deep ball. But
yeah, it looked like he was developing the Phillip Rivers throwing motion.
No,
do you know what I'm talking about? It's like it looks like he's sidearming like a dart.
Yeah.
It's disgusting to watch.
Speaking of
Phillip
Rivers,
watch Phillip throw a ball.
Speaking of Phil, I am going to miss those late game comeback drives that end with the interception
you say
or
that,
coming
but
short.
You are not going to be missing them because you will now see it on CBS.
Oh, fair enough.
Or was the Chargers on CBS? I don't know.
They probably
You're
weren't.
You're going to be seeing them in a Colts uniform.
Yeah, I'll be seeing them doing that in Indianapolis instead.
It'll be T.Y. Hilton not being able to catch the deep ball that will break our souls.
I'm really looking forward to him just grabbing the straps, pulling them, and then yanking off the helmet and throwing it.
Dadgummit.
Yeah, he does that like every time. He looks like he wants to just die every time he fails in a fourth quarter drive.
So every Sunday.
Yeah, so every other Sunday. Number 13, again, speaking of disappointments, we have OBJ. He was bad last season. He was really bad. It was his worst of his career. He's number 23. Well, first off, he was drafted as a top 5 receiver.
Are you blaming him? You said he was really bad. Are you blaming him, or are you saying his stats were really bad? What was really bad, him or the team, or what are you suggesting is terrible?
Everything. It was just rough. He barely eclipsed 1,000 yards. He had 4 touchdowns, which is easily the lowest of his career. He only had 5 red zone receptions as well. He's basically being drafted now for what he's capable of and not what he's done in recent years. I'd say it could be due to poor quarterback play, but he put up numbers with Eli Manning in the tail end of Eli Manning's career.
Not very respectful to Eli.
No, not at all. But he was drafted as a top 5, and he wasn't even top 10 in any major stat. So I think he was a huge disappointment. As somebody who drafted him last year,
top 10 in the draft for wide receivers.
Yeah, I did not win with that one. But there should be a better offensive line, which in theory should give Baker more time, give more deep ball threats, and so on.
Or potentially, maybe the biggest thing is Freddie Kitchens is gone.
True. That helps a lot too.
That guy was like an intern.
It's tough to draft
a substitute teacher.
It's tough to draft a guy when he's competing with targets with guys like a David Njoku. But I'm kidding. There is a strong receiving core around there, so it makes it. There are a lot more mouths to feed there than in New York, so that's another concern too. But his lack of red zone usage, his lack of, I'm looking at it now. Touchdowns. He was 51st in touchdowns. That is atrocious, especially for a guy with his skill set. His stats have seen a steady decline every single year except for one, where he's like year 1 went down to year 2, went down to year 3. I think they went down to year 2, up to year 3, down to 4, and down to 5. So he's been on a downward trajectory for a while now. And if he has
a trajectory you want to be on,
no. And if he has a bad season this year, it's not going to be good because the way he's like paraded around. He's treated like an elite receiver when he hasn't been elite for a couple of years.
But have you seen his one-handed catches in practice so far?
I have, yeah, and I couldn't care less.
Are you sold?
No, where were those? He's been doing that his whole career in practice.
Should I sell in Dynasty?
It depends what you can get for him.
So maybe.
You might, yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to it. But anyways, moving along, we have Amari Cooper, who we spoke about a lot this episode, and it seems almost like this is the Amari Cooper episode because I have some fun facts for you.
Oh no. You've been waiting this whole time.
I have. We have home versus away woes. And these are the woes of Amari Cooper. I guess they're only half woes because one of them's really good, but the other one's really bad. And the home is actually fantastic. He played 35 games with 274 targets, 188 receptions, and 2,800 yards with a catch rate of 69%. Nice. But on the away games, which is actually 2 more games, he had 2 less targets, which is pretty consistent. He had, trying to do the math in my head, 42 less receptions. He had 900 less yards and a catch rate of 54%, which is 15% lower. So it seems like in the home games thus far through his 72-game career, he's an elite receiver. But through the away games, he only seems to be average at best, which is a weird stat. And it is a fun fact, don't get me wrong. But it seems like some games he's the best receiver in the league. In other games, he's not that great. And it just all depends on the night.
Yeah, he is one of those guys that just kind of randomly.
You're just kind of like, what's going on? Like you see him torch a team for 300 yards, and you're like, this guy's good. And then the next game, he's held the 2 catches for 4 yards. It's like
he'll have like 3 games in a row where he's over 20 points and then drop nothing.
It's like
doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
And it's not like I know they're not avoiding him. So like he's not getting open. So it's just strange. But that being said, we'll move along to number 11. I've been relatively pessimistic with these previous guys. But this guy I'm actually very excited about, and that is Allen Robinson. He was fantastic about 4 years ago. Then he had...
and last year.
No, I'm prefacing.
Okay.
Then he had actually, I think it's 5 years ago. Time's moving fast. But he had a 1,414 season. Then he had a disappointing season after that. Then he had the season. He had 1 catch and tore his ACL. Then he had his first season, which was okay in Chicago. And at that point, most people were thinking, this guy... He's just a flash in the pan. But then last season, he showed up, and he was fantastic. He had a career high in 98 receptions, which is good, especially for PPR. And this is with horrible quarterback play, too, but it seemed like they really force-fed him the ball. He was number 7 in snap share.
I was going to say, they don't have a lot of other options besides him.
No, it's either give him the ball or punt, because they're running, or give it to Tariq Cohen for a 2-yard pass, which we'll just don't start on Tariq Cohen. Number 7 in snap share. Number 8 in deep targets. So he's a deep target threat still, but he's also number 5 in target rate. So he's getting targeted in the short and the deep balls, which is really good for a fantasy receiver, obviously. Number 6 in receptions, number 9 in red zone catches, and number 9 in points per game. So for a guy who was drafted, I believe, in the 4th round last year, he really, really, really exceeded expectation, and I'm very excited about him this year. And I guess
I'm very excited about him this year, as we will find out later on in this episode.
Yeah, if he can stay healthy and get some just average quarterback play, he could be a top 5 option easy. I mean, granted, he was top 9 last year, but he could really even exceed that. But yeah, I would love to hear yours.
All right, perfect. I will jump in at number 15. I actually have Julian Edelman at 15. I think with Cam taking over, I think they're just going to have a lot. I guess this probably doesn't matter too much different than Brady, since Edelman's more of an underneath guy kind of now. But I expect him to have, probably about the same production, if not a little bit more. Moving forward here, and I expect him to I think he has 1 or 2 pretty good seasons left in him.
I agree.
One great season left, and so I think he might be a little, when you kind of feel, I don't want to say disrespected, but his quarterback left, and people are, you're only good because of Brady kind of thing. I think he's
got heart.
He does rank very high on the heart scale. Him and Danny Amendola. I'm expecting Patriots of old. Wes Welker.
I know who Danny
Amendola is. I'm expecting him to have another great season this year. And I'm expecting, again, this is a big thing because of PPR. I'm expecting a lot of receptions and him to kind of do his normal thing.
Especially at ADP 75.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys.
Marlon Mack is 76. And we don't even know if he's going to have the starting job.
Yeah, there are a lot. He's one of those
Will
guys.
Fuller is 74. The pickup before him.
Yeah, I would get it if this wasn't redraft. But, in a redraft league, I wouldn't really be. And I know Edelman kind of gets hurt, dinged up a decent amount, but I'm not really going to shy away from him, especially, Jared Stidham, it looked like he got hurt today, Friday the 21st. So it's looking more and more like, we're going to have, or at least he's going to be the primary guy out there.
And like we established, Cam or whoever the starter is, just can't suck, and they'll be fine.
Well, yeah, and I just expect him to be more dynamic in general. So.
Yeah.
My next guy, number 14, is going to be Courtland Sutton. Again, a lot of these guys Brandon's already mentioned, so I'm not going to go off for 10 minutes on them. But I like Courtland Sutton a lot this year. He had a very nice season last year. I believe he was at about 1,200 yards. Really put a nice season together, especially with Drew Lock not playing the entire year. I think Drew Lock, as Brandon had mentioned, is going to be a very big, I don't want to say resurgence because he's never been anything, but I think it's going to be his year to kind of show the league who he is. I've been debating buying his autographed rookie card for quite a while now.
Interesting.
Nice future investment potentially. But I think he's going to put together a nice year. That offense is looking very nice, especially with Melvin Gordon coming in, Philip Lindsay, Freeman down there, and then the receiving core just keeps getting better. So I'm expecting them to actually be pretty good. The defense has always been a strong point, so I'm expecting the Broncos to honestly be a very good team and Courtland Sutton to be a big part of that.
They have a bunch of playmakers where even Locke doesn't have to be perfect, and they can still be fine.
Yeah, I'd be honestly very excited to be a Broncos fan right now.
Yeah.
It's a little better than the Tebow era. Number 13 is going to be DJ Chark for me. I think on Jacksonville, he's going to put a very nice year together. They actually have a surprising amount of decent pass catchers over there. But obviously they have Fournette. Unfortunately, it's a situation where they don't have a really good quarterback, but Minshew's going to push the ball enough that I think he's still going to be very successful, Chark. And I think that they have a lot to look forward to as far as him getting better, as he's still pretty new to the league as well. So I'm expecting another big year from him, a lot more stats, and as long as Leonard Fournette keeps getting 3 touchdowns, it leaves a lot for the receivers. So
that should go. I'd like to think that would go up.
Yeah, you'd think so, and I'm sure it will. But he's never been a huge touchdown guy.
It can't really go down.
Yeah, so it's kind of unfortunate for Jacksonville because their offense is honestly pretty good. Like if you just look personnel wise, but
I won't go that far.
I don't know. I think that I think they're pretty good. So,
They're all right. They're all right.
So that's coming from a Packers fan who has one wide receiver on the team. But my number 12 guy is going to be kind of almost where Brandon mentioned him, Keenan Allen. I expect him to put up some big numbers there. I know that nobody's a fan of the quarterbacking situation, but I just think that he's a guy that's consistently open. He's often said to have the best route running and the best footwork in the NFL, and so I know he's always going to get open, and he's going to be able to, kind of be the safety blanket for the quarterback, whoever that may be there. I know it looks like, what was it, Tyrod's starting right now?
Right now.
With, was it Herbert, who's sitting on the sideline? But, even if that changes, they always need a guy who can get open, and obviously Keenan Allen's that guy, and he is very good, and, you always love to see him arguing with people on social media about how good he is. So I'm expecting
it's like a weekly thing.
A very nice season for him. Obviously, if there was a different quarterback there, I would have him ranked a little bit higher, but he's always a high volume guy, lots of catches, great for PPR, obviously.
Out of curiosity, do you think he's going to end the season with more arguments or more touchdowns?
He's never, I don't know. What's argument mean? Like, what are we talking arguments?
Clap back.
On all social medias combined?
Unless it's a duplicate. Like, if he screenshots a tweet in Instagram, that's only one.
More touchdows.
More touchdowns?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be,
That's saying a lot.
I think it's kind of I don't think it's going to be too much on the talk side. A lot of those guys go into zero dark 40 mode when once the season starts. My number 11 is going to be Chris Godwin for the Bucs. He's a guy that I'd like to rank higher, but it's so hard to tell what that offense is going to be, as we've mentioned in prior podcasts. That offense could be great. It could be awful. It could be a guy that we don't know of getting all the stuff, all the yards. It's just really hard to project. But I expect Chris Godwin to be very good. I expect him and Tom Brady to have a lot of rapport, and I expect him to have high usage. And so, obviously, I don't expect them to have the same offensive numbers as last year, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be bad or they're not going to be elite. So, Chris Godwin is my number 11.
Sounds good. And speaking of elite, we actually have an elite question from Reddit.
Oh.
From the people of Reddit, the good people of Reddit. The
not
civil
many good ones,
people of Reddit.
Yeah, the people of Reddit might be the more fit script, but what is it? What do we got?
It's not much of a question, but I saw this. I guess
so. We don't have a question.
Okay, wait. No, the next one. I'm sorry. The next one's a question for Reddit. This one I actually saw a headline and I put it in there. This is not for the people. It's for the people, but not from the people.
Not by the people.
Not by the people, but for the people, nonetheless. It is Kareem Hunt has been mentioned by multiple coaches as a possible third receiver, lining up as a wide receiver alongside OBJ and Jarvis Landry. Do you think this could work? Or the question is coming from me now. Do you think this could work? How do you think this impacts his fantasy value? Do you think it will add a RB/WR where he could be played in both spots in leagues? And just what effect do you think this has on anything?
No, he'll be designated as a receiver or as a running back.
That's what I thought too.
I expect him. To me, without obviously having any real details here, I think he's gonna occasionally, maybe once a game, twice a game, line up as a slot in the receiving spot. But I expect him to still do most of his damage out of the backfield.
They said as the possible third receiver.
I've heard of that as well. That's one of the ones I'm going to kind of wait to see it to believe it. I think he'll line up there occasionally. I just don't think it's going to be anywhere close to like an every down kind of situation.
I think too this helps his value quite a bit, even if or maybe not quite a bit, but it certainly doesn't hurt
lower it.
Because last year he was just fine in the passing game, not lining up as a receiver. So if they just put him there when Nick Chubb is out there as well, it just gives him more opportunity.
Yeah, I just think that Nick Chubb can't take every single carry, so I think he's still going to get work. I don't know. I don't think he's going to officially be as a receiver, even though I think they'll put him out there occasionally.
Do you think he's the best guy for this to work with? Do you think anybody else could do it better?
The best guy in the league around the Browns, or what?
The best running back. Do you think if there were, do you think he'd be one of the more successful running backs lining up as a wide receiver?
Yeah, but there are quite a few that could probably do it. They could probably all do it. It's just,
I think
it depends how good his footwork is
and
his routes. But obviously he is primarily a receiving back. It'd be kind of like sticking James White out there, right? I mean, how bad could he be?
I mean, the thing is, it's instead of going up against linebackers, they'll now be going up against corners, which makes things a little more difficult. But I did find that a very fascinating.
But you also get the ball in different situations. Mm-hmm. If you get it behind the line of scrimmage at a full head of steam, versus running down the middle or running a wheel route. I mean, it's a little bit. I don't know. The route trees are a little different, so that'll be interesting.
It was definitely interesting. I did not see it coming, but when I heard it, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah,
it depends. It also depends how much the Browns receivers suck.
True.
I mean, if your receiving core is bad enough, aka the Packers, that you need to line up a running back, that'd almost be kind of concerning. But
I think it also could be
Montgomery was essentially both.
I'm trying to think of his name. A Taysom Hill thing. Where they're like, we're running him as receiver. Mm-hmm. And he gets 4 catches on the season out of the receiver position. Everyone's talking about it, even though it's irrelevant. Kind of like Taysom Hill. Like, he got 10 catches this year, 3 rushing attempts, and he blocked a kick. He's incredible. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, he's just the jack of all trades is the master of none. And that's Taysom Hill. And it seems like they might be trying to do that with Kareem Hunt, but I think Kareem Hunt's better at everything.
In a different kind of way.
Yeah, I think he'd be more successful.
Gets 10 quarterback snaps a year.
Yeah, Taysom Hill. But yeah.
You find a way every podcast to bring him up.
That was that was an interesting headline, I thought. And I guess moving along, we can move into our top 10. Number 10 for me is Mike Evans.
You mean number 9?
Number 10.
I thought we just did 14 through 10.
10 through 6. We're doing 10 through 6 now.
What did we do before?
We went to 11.
From 14?
15.
Or am I just, I don't know. Never
15,
mind.
14, 13,
I don't,
11.
It's fine. It's whatever.
Maybe we start at 16. I don't know. Either way, the listeners are gonna think they're gonna know we can't count. We're exposing ourselves. But number 10 for me is Mike Evans. He's a very good deep target threat. However, I am very pessimistic about him. Although I do have him at number 10, just because his whole career he's been fantastic. So if somebody were to make this work, it would be him. He's a very good deep target threat. Excuse me, I lost my place. But Brady doesn't really do that. I'm expecting touchdowns to potentially go up, but I think the yards will go down. And last year he was number 2 in yards downfield, which really worries me because he's, as that states, he's top 2 as a downfield threat. And I don't think that Tom Brady is capable of that anymore. So, and I think that skill set really works with a guy like Jameis who's willing to gunsling. And I don't think it will work very well with Brady. So he's a guy I could see falling.
It is a little different, though, when you have a guy that can actually catch contested balls.
Absolutely.
And isn't 6 foot tall.
So there's a lot of uncertainty, I guess, following the whole offense, but especially Mike Evans. Number 9, I have Adam Thielen. I'm not counting last year because he was hurt the entire season. His last healthy season was 1,400 yards, 113 catches, and 9 touchdowns. And he's now the clear-cut guy with no digs around. And as much as I love Kirk Cousins, he does like to throw the short ball to the receivers a lot. And For PPR and Thielen, I think that benefits him a lot. So I think he's a very underrated pick this year. And if he could stay healthy, he could easily be a top 5 receiver. Number 8, we have Kenny Golladay. He was on a tear with Stafford last year. He was still very good when Stafford got hurt. He is the best receiver on a pass-first team, which is also very, very encouraging. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and he was number 1 in touchdowns as a receiver. So I think he's a guy who has a pretty high floor, all things considered, and he can really only go up because he's only been in the league a couple of years. Number 7 is another guy in the Bucs who I have more faith in than Mike Evans, and that's Chris Godwin. He's a slot receiver. He was number 1 in yards after catch, which for the short passes which are bread and butter for Tom Brady. I think that would be good for him. He also had more red zone catches and touchdowns than Mike Evans, which I thought was interesting because everyone looks at Evans as the big red zone target, but it seems like Chris Godwin, got more work in there. The non-existent run game benefited him a lot, and I think that run game is still going to be pretty weak this year. So
I think you're going to be surprised.
I don't have much faith
There's
in it.
even a lot of talk of how good the Shady looks right now.
Well, he didn't look bad last year. He's looked good his whole career, football speaking, of course. But
he's no Peyton Barber.
Yeah, he's actually good.
He's actually good at football.
And that's the thing. Like the fact that I know I've said this before, but the fact that Ronald Jones got beat out for the starting spot 2 years in a row to Peyton Barber, I think that speaks
but the
volumes.
Offensive line was statistically
that
so bad.
speaks volumes. If Peyton Barber could beat you out 2 years in a row,
was terrible.
I don't have much faith in the running game. It could surprise me, but I just don't have much faith in it. And my number 6, this one, a little bit of a hot take because he's the consensus number 2.
Oh no!
And I have him at number 6, and that's Devontae Adams.
Oh no!
He's very talented, but it's always something. Every year, it's always something. He keeps getting drafted as an elite receiver, and he's only put up elite numbers one time. And the thing with it is, it's always, oh, well, he got hurt. Or, oh, well, Rodgers went down. You had Brett Hundley throwing to him. What do you expect?
Brett Hundley has not been on that team for a minute.
Fine. Deshaun Kaiser or whoever the awful backups on the Packers are. Whenever Rodgers gets hurt, everyone's like, oh, well, Devontae Adams is fantastic. But it seems like the past, 4 out of the past 5 years, it's been something. Regardless if it's his fault or not, it's always been something. And yeah, I have here in the past 6 seasons, he has 1 elite season. The offense seems to be moving to more run-first identity. And there also is a chance that Aaron Rodgers might find a dip in production this season as he gets older and as there's more of a run-first system and whatnot. He only ranked top 10 in 2 categories last year, or major categories, and that's, I guess, fantasy points, which is the most important, and number 3 in red zone receptions, which is also very good, which are very encouraging for him, which is why I have him so high. It's just I can't have him drafted as a top 5 receiver, as he's been a top 5 receiver 1 time in 6 years. Like I said, that's my final one for this.
I think he's gonna have a nice season.
Well, he should. It's not a question of talent. I mean, last year if he played 16 games, he would have been fantastic, but he didn't.
Special fun question for the viewers at home. What team is Brett Hundley on?
I'm not answering this because you said it's for the viewers. Because I don't know.
And for you, obviously.
Brett Hundley.
We have 2 very quick Brett Hundley questions. We're not going to spend time on him, so just hurry. Just give me a guess.
I'll say the Washington football team.
He is on the Arizona Cardinals. What team did he play on in 2018?
The Seattle Seahawks.
Trick question. He was out of the league. All right, so
okay.
I will go ahead and give my...
Those are some great questions.
Well, I think everybody at home just learned something they didn't know.
I certainly did.
I did too. All right. So my number 10 wide receiver is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. Again, as somebody who owned him last year, I'm kind of predisposed to not wanting him on my roster ever again. Mm-hmm. But it was clear that when he has Big Ben, that he's obviously a different player and a guy that you can trust. And so I'm still hesitant because of what happened to me last year, but I think that I'd feel safe drafting him as the 10th wide receiver. I think he might have been like the 4th or 5th, or he was very high last year.
Do you think his production will ever reach the heights it did 2 years ago with Brown being gone? Or do you think that Brown being there opened him up a lot to worse coverage?
So I think that I think he still is going to be very good. I just don't think the offense is going to be quite as good probably as it was 2 years ago with Roethlisberger. Also, Deontay Johnson has emerged since then. And I know that he's not obviously Antonio Brown, but I think that now instead of having the mega superstar on the team, I think you just have – I know everybody kind of tanks James Washington a little bit, but he's serviceable. And obviously Juju and Deontay are both good. I just think it's going to be more of a situation where you have three guys that are closer to each other than like one guy who's just,
the guy
way levels above. So I think it's going to be more of a split. I do think Juju is going to be the best guy in the still though. And then I think Deontay is going to be pretty good, and James Washington's also going to be pretty good there as well. So I just expect a bounce back, if nothing else, from him. I don't think he's going to get the 1,400 yards or whatever he had 2 years ago, but I still think he's going to put together a nice season and be obviously a big asset for your team. Number 9, I have Julio Jones.
It's disrespectful.
I just feel like there's not much to say about him. He's just good every single year. Again, I don't really have anything else to say. I do think he's getting older, so he might be losing, and I'm just putting a step.
The burst.
In terms of, like, his ceiling, but obviously dude's still a monster with awesome floor. So I have him at number 9, Again, I just don't feel like I need to explain to people why he's good. So number 8 is Jarvis Landry.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Dude gets 1 million targets.
I'm sweating over here. That's a hot take.
It's PPR. He gets 1 million targets, gets a lot of yards, and I think the offense is going to be up this year.
I think he's criminally underrated.
So I think he's going to be getting a lot of receptions, a lot of targets, a lot of yards. I meant to say touchdowns instead of targets, but I think he's just going to be all over the place. I expect him to have the most receiving yards again on the team. He's obviously ranked ahead of Odell Beckham Jr. for me. So I expect him to have another incredible year like last year, and I think that there's a chance he could even have a higher ceiling due to them having higher usage.
Does the emergence of David Njoku worry you at all?
No, but maybe Austin Hooper.
Okay.
No, I think Njoku actually gets some more usage than last year.
It can't get any less.
I think the Browns' offense is going to be better. I know
the bar was set very low.
Well, I saw a video of Baker throwing downfield to OBJ the other day, and there was not
coverage,
not a nice looking ball.
No,
but so yeah, it's just one of those. I just think he's going to be pretty good this year, and I'm excited to. He's one of those guys that feels dirty to draft really high because like who wants to draft Jarvis Landry with a top pick? I don't, but
I think it'd be silly to though because nobody else values him as much.
Well, there's a difference. If I think I can get him at 15 and I have him ranked at 8. What I'm saying is that I might not draft him at the 8th spot because.
Well, no, but you can probably get him at the 25.
Well, yeah, that's how you.
Okay.
It's all about strategy.
Yeah.
If you know that if you can feel the room of the draft, or if everybody uses ADP, don't draft him at. Obviously, there are running backs in here, but don't draft him at wide receiver 8 if he's.
His ADP is number 82.
Well, what's that for running backs or wide receivers?
This stupid site doesn't say.
Okay. I'm just saying, if he's wide receiver 20, then obviously don't draft him at number 8.
It is after Will Fuller, though, significantly.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I know.
All right, number 7, I have DeAndre Hopkins. This is going to be a little bit more of just uncertainty versus I think he's bad. Obviously, he's amazing and potentially the best receiver in the league. I'm just a little worried about that offense. Christian Kirk is on the rise. Larry Fitzgerald's still there. There's just a lot of work, and Kyler didn't throw for, enough to – it wasn't a Cowboys type situation over there. So, obviously, I expect Kyler to get better. I expect DeAndre Hopkins to obviously be the one, but there's going to be a lot of guys eating into that. And even, Kenyon Drake, his emergence there, he gets receiving yards. Chase Edmonds gets receiving yards. They just throw it around a lot. So, I'm expecting the offense to be a little more diversified, and that's why I have him ranked where I do.
I have a quick fun fact for the offense of the
Let's hear it.
The Arizona Cardinals. Before Kenyon Drake showed up, they were number 3 in pass attempts. But in the second half of the season, they went back to, I believe it was 25 or 27. I didn't write it down in pass attempts. So once Kenyon Drake showed up, they did lose a lot of passing, which I don't know if that's concerning or not.
Yeah, I would need to look into that a little more too, just because.
But it fell into the easily like high 20s, which I at first concerned me with Hopkins, but at the same time, I feel like with Hopkins there, it won't go back that far.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I'd like to take a look at because, did the teams they play get harder? Did they have bigger leads? There are other things. I mean, obviously, it'd be hard for that to flip if it wasn't somewhat true.
Yeah, their team got significantly better, too, with the Drake. So maybe they weren't down by 50, so they weren't
to your
forcing
point,
to
I just think they will be more balanced with the run throw, and then they have good enough receivers at the 2-3 option that you're just – a little more hesitant to say, oh, yeah, this guy's a lock for 1,200 yards or whatever.
If it were anybody else, it would concern me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned in the sense I'd rank him higher if he was on the Texans, but, as far as...
I don't know about that.
Oh, he'd be the only guy.
He essentially is.
No. Well, you know what?
I mean, Kirk's fine, but like
Fitzgerald's going to he's going to get 600 to 700, 800 yards.
he's 1,000 years old.
Yeah, he's a lock for over 600 yards, though. And on the offense that doesn't throw like the Cowboys, that's still saying something.
We'll see.
Well, while you look that up, I have at number 6, Tyreek Hill. Dude's monster. I don't need to tell anybody that. He got hurt for a little while last game, and Patrick Mahomes got hurt for a little while last year. And so I think that's why, if anybody's down on him, that's probably why, just because his stats didn't look as good as they should have. But if you look at when he's healthy and Mahomes is healthy, obviously there's really the only 1 year, because 2018, because Mahomes was a rookie in 17 and only played the last couple games. I think that's what you're going to expect to see, and I, on the whole, expect their offense to be better this year. And so I think Tyreek Hill, this is one that might even come back to bite me, assuming he stays hurt. I think he's obviously could finish better than the number 6 spot, but I think that's a great spot to have him. He's one of those guys I might reach on Mecole Hardman if I had him on my team, just because the second Tyreek Hill goes down, Mecole Hardman's a top 10 receiver. So
Yeah.
I would, I'm not saying he's better, but they're both pretty similar in the roles that they play, and they're relatively interchangeable. And so that might be a good strategy there, but I really love Tyreek Hill at number 6.
Well, that concludes.
Well, did you have a
until
stat?
the top 5?
Did you have it? You were
No,
looking up a stat.
I was.
That's why I went to Tyreek, because you were looking something up.
Oh no, I wasn't.
Okay, fair enough.
We come to our final for the people question.
Oh,
And this one's actually a question, unlike the last one.
ooh,
And this
very
one
exciting.
is straight from the good people at Reddit. We have
The people
the people. They were here. Let's see. We have
might not be good.
Julian Edelman, 8th round ADP, ranked outside top 30 wide receivers. What am I missing?
It sounds like you're missing a brain there, friend. No, I obviously gave my rank earlier. I think people just get nervous when they hear old people, when they hear guys that are older.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who drafts AJ Green ahead of him, I would be like, it sounds like, no, based on the ADP.
Yeah, no, it's a head scratcher.
So it's like, so you're willing to draft a guy who's played 6 games in 2 years with a rookie quarterback versus, Julian Edelman with Cam. I'm like, I don't know. That makes no sense to me. Again, I had him ranked at 15 in case you didn't remember.
And I got this question without knowing where you had him either. So like now after we've gone through this, I kind of already know your answer.
Yeah, I don't get why he'd be ranked so far back. I mean, I get that he's old, but again, in a redraft league, I don't see why he would be bad.
My thing is, as I said it twice now, this will be the 3rd time, Cam just has to not suck. That's all he's got to do. That offense will be rolling. It's just if Cam doesn't suck. Because all of the efficiency numbers by Tom Brady were pedestrian at best. They're pedestrian.
I think the one little thing that can be overlooked is how much they worked on timing.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of the Jordy Nelson, Aaron Rodgers thing, where their timing was so good, their rapport was so good that they knew when they were going to break. They knew they were really in sync all the time. And I'm not saying that Edelman can't get in sync with Cam. You worry a little bit that if Edelman was maybe playing better because of he was in sync versus that was, that could have been his edge, since his athleticism probably isn't where it was.
He gets a lot of separation, though. He gets so much.
Yeah, I mean, some guys can still, I mean, there's a 35-year-old dude still running 4.4s. So, I mean, it's not like he's lost that. He might not necessarily have lost some, but usually due to, attrition and everything else and injuries, you're going to lose, not be as spry. But
So I guess to answer the question, he's missing nothing. Or the question asker's missing nothing, because it is, at least to me, ludicrous that he's rated outside the top 30
that's a pretty
receivers.
wild ranking for him.
Especially with
I
guys
haven't looked at the ADPs. So
I told Will Fuller. I totally lost his name. Will Fuller is being drafted ahead of him. Like you're telling me that guy's not a risk.
Yeah,
you're telling me he's not a risk, but Edelman is. Like Edelman's done more last year than he's done all career.
I'm not a big Will Fuller guy.
Yeah, like always, he's old. He could get hurt. It's like, yeah, you know what? Will Fuller is going to get hurt. So, yeah,
it's not even a question anymore. It's when.
Yeah, Reddit user. I don't have his name here.
Oh, come on.
I know. You're missing nothing. You're actually very smart.
Well, are you? Smart person wouldn't have to ask.
He's smart, but just lacks confidence in his opinion.
I'm just joking, by the way. I'm sure he's very intelligent. I mean, everybody on Reddit's smart.
Yes.
So with that being said, let's go to
The definitive.
the definitive. These are the best 5 receivers
From the best podcast.
of the 2020 season. These are guys you need on your team. And if we're wrong, you can let us have it. But let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Give us your number 5.
So, this is a hot take.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
And if you've been listening closely, you might have noticed I haven't mentioned a certain receiver on here.
Well, yeah, there'd be 5.
I know. At least 5. In a certain
I'm not
receiver.
sure where that segue is going, but okay.
And actually, I put this as the first thing I have in the notes is scalding hot take.
Ooh.
Scalding. And this is Cooper Kupp. Last season, number 7 in receptions, number 11 in yards, number 4 in yards after catch, number 3 in red zone catches, number 2 in touchdowns, and number 7 in fantasy points. And this was in games that he played.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he missed half the season. So, obviously, if you were number 2 in touchdowns halfway through the season, that would be a miracle. But it's not.
For what it's worth, I'm just going to go ahead and say that I have Cooper Kupp ranked as my number 5 as well.
Okay.
So he's ranked as the number 5 for me. He put up incredible stats last year, especially for a team that looked like they lost their way a little bit on offense. It looked like...
I misspoke. He was hurt 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I just think that with how bad the offense looked, and, you know, I just expect them to bounce back. I don't think the McVay offense is going to look that bad again.
No.
Even with the quarterback play that was questionable most of the season, I just think it's only going to get better from there. They're going to be more creative. I think, you know, a lot of times when you strike lightning the first time, it can sometimes regress and it looks like everything's bad where you might have just outperformed the first time.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to get more towards, I think their mean, so to speak, is going to be better than last year. And I think they're going to move towards the median there versus just kind of falling off a little bit.
And yeah, last year his stats look good, but he had a game where he left early with an injury, and then he played a couple snaps the next game and left again. So he missed essentially 2 games in there, and he still put up almost 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns on 94 receptions on 134 targets. And even his rookie season, he only started 6 games and had 900 yards and 62 receptions. So when he plays, he is really good.
Mm-hmm. And he'll always get a lot of catches too.
I think he's definitely the steal of the draft for receivers.
Do you have ADP on him or no?
I'll pull it up.
If
real
not,
quick.
that's a different episode.
His ADP. Let me just pull it up here. It is very far back. He's number 41 and number 1, 2.
Is he at least top 20 on receivers? I would hope so.
He's number 15.
Yeah, that's still. I mean, it's still good value.
Yeah, he's behind OBJ, which I think is crazy.
I mean, I could see a world where that's right, but I wouldn't rank it. I didn't, but I wouldn't rank it that way.
And yeah, let's see. In 2018, he got injured, but he was on track for 1,312 on 80 receptions. Last year, he had 94 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 10 touchdowns. When he's healthy, he puts up top 5 production pretty easily. Number 4, we have Tyreek Hill, a less scalding hot take. And this one might actually be hot because a lot of people have him at the number 3 spot. So I'd say lukewarm. But health-wise, everything went wrong for Hill last year. He got hurt. Mahomes got hurt. And he still ended as the number 11 receiver, though, which is very good. He's the best receiver on a historic offense. And if he's healthy, I could see him easily getting 1,400 yards easy. So I like Tyreek Hill a lot. And
I agree.
When he plays and when he's healthy, he is easily one of the most dangerous players. And he could win you a game easy.
No, I agree.
Number 3, Julio Jones, the poster child of consistency. 1,200 yards in every season since 2012, back when the world was supposed to end. Except for 13. He got hurt.
Remember when that was fun? That's a breeze compared to this year.
It really
Imagine
was.
the biggest thing you had to worry about was the world ending.
The thing that blows my mind is when people are like, oh, I can't wait for 2020 to be over. As if all the problems that we have now are just going to magically... They're going to look like, oh, well, it's January 1st, 2021. It's time to go. Like, I don't know.
The new year will start once the election's over. That's how it's going to work.
Potentially. But Julio Jones, 1,200 yards in every season since 2012, except 13 when he got hurt, but he's on track for nearly 2,000 yards that season. He finished great with a down year with Matt Ryan last year. Regression at 31 years old is a concern. However, last year he was number 5 in receptions, number 2 in receiving yards, and number 3 in fantasy points. The thing is with him, even when he has a down year, he's still top 3.
I know we do tend to talk about him like he's like 35.
He's only 31, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it though is his game is more based on probably athleticism and downfield motion.
He's
versus we're like not Amendola. The Edelmans of the world do a lot of under like seam routes where
the nice thing with him though is he's always elite fantasy wise without many touchdowns. So it's like it's more consistent. Number 2, we have DeAndre Hopkins. He was number 2 in receptions last year. But he was number 5 in targets.
I'm surprised you have him this high.
He's one of those guys I could see moving down a little bit. He was number 4 in points last year, but he did all this with number 25 in red zone catches. So he's able to score top 5 without getting targeted in the red zone. At least not much. He's on a new team that does like to pass. It seemed like they kind of lost their way second half with passing the ball. But I could see with him, they brought him there for a reason. If they were looking to be a run-first team, they wouldn't have went after him. Well, I guess they got him for nothing.
Yeah, they did get rid of.
I mean, yeah, they got him for nothing, I guess. But at the same time, I think they're going to throw the ball more. I think there's going to be a step up in quarterback play as well. Although it wasn't terrible last year, I could see it moving forward a little bit with Kyler Murray. And yeah, I like that a lot. And I guess one also thing to mention with the running attack, their offensive line for run blocking was not good last year. However, their run block efficiency for Kenyon Drake but all of a sudden went up to number 3 in the league when he played. For some reason, when Kenyon Drake got the ball, they blocked a lot better. Like their grade prior to that was horrible.
Did they block better or was he just better?
It could be a mix of both, but they like their efficiency, like the clean holes he got, which is what they used to measure it. It got a lot better once he got there. I don't know why. I don't know what changed because no personnel changed. But it's just something that I guess concerns me a little with Kenyon Drake just because he had really good run block efficiency, but when it usually wasn't. But if that were to go down a bit, I could see some of his production moving down a bit, which could lead them to go more pass first for DeAndre Hopkins. And number 1 is the clear-cut favorite. It's not even controversial. We have Michael Thomas, number 1 in receptions, number 1 in receiving yards, number 1 in completion air yards, number 1 in red zone catches, number 1 in fantasy points. You know all of it.
I will say he is not number 1 in my heart, though.
No, I agree. No, he's one of them, but not number 1.
I know. Not for me.
Who is number 1 in your heart?
Definitely not him. I don't know. I like the Devontae Adams. I like the DeAndre Hopkins. Like those kind of guys. I like OBJ.
Do you think?
I like Kenny.
Do you think Michael Thomas lacks grit?
I think.
Do you think he lacks wit?
He's one of those guys that he gets too many
He's boring.
Short slant route catches.
Yeah, 15 catches for 100 yards, and it turns into a 25-point game.
I think it's the reason I poop on McCaffrey a lot.
It's just
he runs a 5-yard route or a 2-yard route.
It's the Russell Westbrook effect. It's like, you shoot every shot. You have the ball in your hand 90% of the game. Of course, you can have all the stats.
And I say this knowing that I'm not being fair to either one of the guys I just was hating on. But they're not. I just don't think of they don't have I just don't think of them as you see that highlight reel.
No, it's 10 catches for 100 yards.
It's not very
all right, cool.
The sexy plays. It's
maybe
the ball McCaffrey a little bit, but it's a lot of the Jarvis Landry type of stuff.
And granted, you have to be good to get the ball that much. So people listening, I don't want them to be like, "Oh, well, you guys think he sucks."
That's why Jarvis Landry's so good.
That's why he's a top 10 receiver according to you. But he doesn't suck. It's just obviously when you get force-fed the ball, the efficiency goes down. But it's just boring. It's you get the most targets there, and you get the most catches and the most yards. It's kind of what's supposed to happen.
If you're not open on a slant, you're not getting the ball. Still, I get it. I'm not saying he's bad.
No, it's just boring. Yeah, he's just kind of boring. And I know people are going to be like, 1,700 yards.
Probably a 4-hour highlight tape of this year that I'm not aware of.
How 1,700 yards boring? I know that's people are probably going to think that, but it's just a boring 1,700 yards.
I would be interested to see how many plays he had over 30 yards.
It probably wasn't many.
I need to look it up.
I could look it up.
Watch are probably 50.
Let me look it up while you give your top 5.
All right, so I'm just gonna preface this by saying,
"Oh boy,
these
are subject to change."
Outside, I have Michael Thomas at number 1, and as we talked about, we have Cooper Kupp at number 5. So my 4 through 2, probably a little bit on the hot take end.
I was very surprised you had Cooper Kupp at number 5.
Yeah, I projected him out very high
because I put that there and I was like, "Ooh," I'm like, "Austin's gonna make fun."
Puts out numbers.
I was like, "Austin's gonna make fun of me for this one." No,
consistency is a big thing in my rankings. That's why sometimes I probably downgrade rookies a little bit. And when I say downgrade, I just don't give them high ceilings.
Especially at the top 2 rounds. Like, you'd want to get the consistent guys.
Well, yeah.
Because, I mean, you know what you're getting. Like, you could lose. You're not going to win your draft on the first couple rounds. And if you do, it's because you.
Well, that's where you can lose it, though.
Yeah, I say if you do, it's because you got like McCaffrey at pick like 6 last year, and he was
or
number
you just
1.
got him at 1.
Yeah, in like I guess, but in very rare situations you do. But you could definitely lose it. Because like last year, my team was fantastic, but I drafted OBJ first round.
I was trying to.
So had I got a good player there, I would have won.
Hypothetically had the number 1 pick, and you know those stupid trade scenarios that we always come up with every year. That if you were somehow able to trade for the number 2 pick,
yeah,
I've been wondering in my head if you were able to get Michael Thomas and Christian McCaffrey, if that would have offset if you traded like your 2nd, 3rd, 4th.
I don't think so, because last year someone in our league had Michael Thomas and Christian McCaffrey, and they didn't even make it to the championship.
Well, okay. Well, I was not aware of that.
Yeah, Luke reminds us about every other day.
Okay, well.
He brought it up last Sunday, which reminded me.
Did he draft both of them without trading?
He traded for McCaffrey.
Okay.
For Derrick Henry, and it was another player. And the 2 players he traded actually were really good too, so it didn't really work out.
Huh.
Like it was like a good deal for both of them.
I was gonna say if he somehow drafted both of those guys with his first 2 picks and then like still didn't do well.
No, he traded Derrick Henry in a really good receiver who wasn't supposed to be great but turned out really good.
Okay.
So like
and
it was kind of like
I completely destroyed my top 10 or my top 5 here, but number 5 was Cooper Kupp. Getting back to it here. Number 4, I actually have Tyler Lockett. So, dude puts up massive numbers every year. He's perennially disrespected. Nobody likes Tyler Lockett for whatever reason because he's
not top 5.
He gets a lot of downfield play. No, he's going to put up. I'm not saying talent wise he's top 5. I'm saying stats wise he's going to put up some numbers this year.
Mm-hmm.
Russell Wilson has been talking how he wants to throw the ball more, and it's looking like they might let him do that. And I think. And like I've mentioned previously, DK Metcalf is also up there. I think him and Metcalf are both going to kind of up their work that they're getting. I think they're going to pass it a little more. And I just think that offense is going to look really nice. And so I still think they're probably going to be more run first, but I think they're going to be a little heavier on the pass than they have been, as they've been very unwilling to pass a lot as of the last couple seasons here. So I'm expecting a big year from Lockett. My number 3, Brandon mentioned him, I believe, around number 12, but it's Allen Robinson.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, so Allen Robinson put together some insane stats. I believe he was over 1,200 receiving yards with Mitch Trubisky doing his best. Ryan Leaf out there. Yeah. And I'm expecting, I mean, if this dude is putting up massive numbers with Blake Bortles and with Mitch Trubisky.
He's probably pretty good.
It makes me just want to shrug and say, what's the worst that could happen next year? I mean, heck, if Nick Foles got out there, oof. I'm not mad. I'm not mad if Nick Foles gets out there. So
definitely not a downgrade.
I think that Allen Robinson, he's just very consistent. He constantly puts points together. And kind of as we alluded to earlier, this is not necessarily everybody's favorite argument to make, but it can't really get worse, so I don't know why he'd be worse.
They forced that in too.
And I don't expect that to change. It's not like they traded for or drafted anybody incredible. So
yeah,
I'm expecting him to have a monster year this year. Again, he's another definition, like we talked about earlier, that you don't have to draft him at the number 3 receiver spot.
He's worth it.
Yeah, if you can get him, and I'm sure he's probably a 3rd round ADP if I had to guess. I have not looked, but
I believe you're
if
correct.
You can snag him in the 3rd round, oh my goodness, I'm just thinking of getting
3rd round pick number 8 according to this.
Him and Cooper Kupp in round 2, 3 or something, 3, 4. But these are the strategies. I'm going to do something stupid like try to get 2 3rd round picks or 2 seconds.
Yeah. And then they both get drafted in the 2nd round, and then you're completely hosed.
But my number 2, we're moving to Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams had 1,000 yards in 10 games last year. I know Brandon said that it's always something with him. It seems like him or Aaron Rodgers or both of them are always hurt every single year at some point. You can't really project that, and especially to happen for a long span of time. So I think he's going to be relatively safe. And outside of last year, the 3 prior years, he had double-digit touchdowns. And so add that to the monster yards he's putting up. Honestly, unless you consider Allen Lazard a real option or, any of the other...
He might be.
Yeah, any of the other bums they got over there. I'm expecting a big year from Devontae Adams, and I'm expecting him to receive... he's going to be getting tons of volume just based on the assets they don't have. Rather than address the wide receiver spot this year in the draft with, potentially the most heavy wide receiver draft of all time, we decided to trade up for a quarterback and not draft a single wide receiver. So,
At least got that second string running back, though.
yeah, and at least our big free agent acquisition wide receiver.
I wouldn't call that big.
Oh, do you remember who it is?
Funchess. Devin Funchess.
Our massive Packers went out and very boldly got Devin Funchess, who's now sitting out. He opted out, so there's nobody on that team to throw to. So Devontae Adams is going to have a monster year, and I know exactly why people are picking him at number 2.
Does the absence of Jimmy Graham worry you with the Packers offense?
Not at all. I think that we're probably better at tight end now than we were. So.
And while you were speaking, I know you mentioned that you have Michael
Chase
Thomas.
Sternberger?
I'm not sure. You said you had
Stern something.
Michael Thomas at number 1.
I certainly do. I essentially I'll just end it in 10 seconds here. Very good. Going to get 1,000 targets. Going to have 1,000,000 yards, a lot of touchdowns. Draft him at number 1 receiver.
You mentioned about big plays. He ranked number 72 in deep targets.
Well, targets are receptions.
Deep targets. He was only targeted 9 times going deep.
Okay. Well, that's okay. And that speaks for it. So that's
yards per reception was number 70.
And now, I'm gonna do the in fairness to him moment here. I understand that Drew Brees can't throw as deep as he used to, and I also get that Teddy Bridgewater can't throw over 5 yards. So I'm not necessarily 100% blaming him for that. It just, again, it kind of goes back to prove our point. He's not a sexy play.
There's one stat that is very, very nice in his favor, though, and that is drops. He had 3 drops, and he had 149 receptions. So that is incredible.
A crazy amount of targets.
Mm-hmm. That's receptions. Targets, he had almost 200.
Sorry, reception. Isn't it wild that, let's just say he had 200, and we'll round up his deep targets. So he had 10 deep targets on 200 pass attempts.
Yeah, it's 5%.
Yeah, that's wild. And does it say what they constitute a deep target?
It does not. I believe it's 15 yards, though.
There's no way it's 15.
I'll have to look it up.
Okay. I would imagine it's probably like 30, 25 or 30. But either way, it's not. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That is wild, though.
It really is.
Jeez. Yeah, and as we said, he's not bad. He just doesn't have a sexy highlight tape, if that makes sense.
They just play the Madden offense with him, where they only throw it to their best guy, and they only use their running back. Like, they use 2 players the whole game.
It's the most obnoxious thing ever. That stupid idiot who always runs the 3.5 yard slant and keeps getting first downs.
Yeah.
Just like the guy who runs the counter sweep, like the sweep or the draw, gets 3.5 first down.
And they go for it on 4th every time.
They use the entire clock to you get one possession in the first half. Yeah, that guy.
Hate to see it.
They always trick you too, because then you're so antsy to get the ball that you go 3 and out and have to punt. And so,
yeah, but then when you're at 3, I'm not going to get the ball back.
Yeah.
So then you go for a stupid 4th down play.
Game. I don't know how anybody plays that way and has fun, but it's a good strategy.
And when you go for it on 4th and miss it, now they have prime field position, and you're like, why did I do that? But then you think, and you're like, okay, I get why I did it, but
it's a tough scene.
I don't like it.
All right, and so that's going to go ahead and close out our wide receiver rankings for the 2020 season. I believe, we got through all the questions. We did have one last very quick segment here. We are at almost an hour and 20 minutes, so we're going to go blazing quick through this last segment.
Rapid fire.
So the last segment that we have is going to be essentially the draft or pass segment on a couple guys, or let's see. I'm sorry, excuse me. Wow.
I was going to say, I was a little confused there.
I gave the incorrect segment there. We are going to be doing the do not draft list. This is more so based for me on ADP. Brandon, what have you made your list?
I didn't mind
ADP,
but that was a great catch.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Unlike Nelson Aguilar. So we are going to go ahead and give you for 2020 a couple players each that we are not drafting due to their ADPs. Brandon, would you like to lead us off, and we'll just go every other?
You're not going to like
we'll
this
do
one.
These, how about 45 seconds or less each
You're
one?
not going to like this one. Mine is Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
For the exact same reason I did not like Dalvin Cook for our do not draft on the last segment. It's the thing. I have no problem with them as players. It's just for where they're being drafted at, I'm not going to do it.
3 years straight of 10 touchdowns or more, and then last year he had 1,010 games.
He's ended as a top 5 receiver one time in 6 years. And it could be factors outside of his control, but it's just every single year he's drafted as a top 5 guy, and he never does it. I mean, never. He does it once, but...
All right, fair enough. I disagree, but that's okay.
That's fair enough.
That's why we're 2 of us here.
Yes.
My first one's going to be, and these are going to be quick because we've already kind of hit on this a little bit, but my first one's going to be Will Fuller. For his ADP, just don't do it.
Wide receiver 29.
Don't do it. Yeah, I don't care if he's wide receiver 35, 40. Don't do it.
Especially his ADP is ahead of guys like Julian Edelman and Jarvis Landry.
There are way better options out there.
Like, why?
For the price tag, and ones that are going to play more than 6 games. So just stay away from Will Fuller.
They're actually good.
He is an official. Stay away.
Well, I guess I had him on my list too, so I'll say somebody different because I don't like him either. Let's see here. My next one would be DJ Moore. He's being drafted as the number 11 wide receiver, and it's not even a question of his talent. It's more the question of his quarterback's talent and the fact that for the number 11 receiver, I like a lot of guys behind him a lot more. And basically, the only reason I would ever pick up DJ Moore is if he would fall to the fifth. He's getting drafted in the 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
If he'd fall to the 5th, I'd probably think about it. But right now, I just could not do it. Especially Juju's behind him, Amari's behind him, Cooper Kupp's behind him. There's a lot of good guys behind him, and they're a decent amount behind him. And I think this draft is really deep in general, but especially deep with the wide receivers. So I'm not going to waste a premium pick on a guy who I have no faith in, or not no faith, but
not no. So you have some.
I have a little, but not much, and I don't like him for where he's being drafted at.
All right, my next one going to be real quick hit on this guy as well. AJ Green is my number 2. Stay away. He is drafted at number 28 overall for wide receivers. As far as wide receivers go, again, kind of the same situation. I don't like to touch guys who are hurt a lot. And so I'm just going to stay away from A.J. Green. Again, 6 games in 2 years, I believe it was.
That's tough.
I'm off A.J. Green. I think that you can do a lot better with that pick. So
he's one of those guys.
Stay away from A.J. Green.
He's one of those guys. There is a very, very off chance where he could be really good.
If he played 16, I would not be saying this, but he's not playing 16. That's a podcast promise right there, as we like to call it. Yeah, that's a suit yourself guarantee. Brandon, who do you got next? I have one more remaining, just as a heads up.
All right, so I guess I have 2 left. So to make it even, it is Will Fuller. I had him there as well. I don't like Will Fuller because he is being drafted at wide receiver 29, and there is no way I would even consider drafting him there. He didn't even make my top 40. He has yet to eclipse 700, or he's yet to have 700 or more yards in the season. And he's like Devonta Adams to a much, 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 much lesser extent, where it's always
they're not even in the
no. In the sense where it's always his year to be good. Like, obviously not Devonta Adams good, but it's always his year to do something, and he never does. Like, he's like a household name for fantasy owners, and he has never put up any decent production.
And because of health, but yes, that counts.
It's always something.
Yeah, I mean,
it's always something.
Matters.
Like, it's just everybody in the fantasy community knows of Will Fuller, but they shouldn't because he has done nothing to warrant that recognition. And now, for whatever reason, I know what the reason is. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is gone, so everyone's like, "Oh, well, Will Fuller's going to magically play 16 games for the first time in his career." No, he's not. And like you said, we project these stats out with 16 games in mind. I would never even think about playing him for 16 games or writing in 16 games because it's not going to happen. Especially, he'd have light usage rate and get hurt. So when he has a heavy usage rate, we think he's going to stay healthy all of a sudden? No. I want nothing to do with him. I want a receiver who could actually get more than 500 yards in the season. And when I'm looking for that, I'm not looking for Will Fuller.
All right, and just to wrap things up, my last wide receiver to stay away from, not even stay away because I don't think he's that good. I just think you can do a lot better with the players around him, is going to be Deebo Samuel. As I look here, he is currently ranked as the wide receiver 34, and I know that's not a huge investment, but, a couple, just looking here, people behind him, Brandon Cooks, Christian Kirk, Deontay Johnson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamison Crowder, just a lot of those guys I think are going to have a better year than him. I know he is a very high upside play. His ceiling is potentially higher than most of those guys, but I still think that I would play it safe, avoid him, and take some guys that are a little more known or a little more guaranteed to do better. So Deebo Samuel, I am staying away.
That's a really good one. I didn't even think about Deebo Samuel, but yeah, that is, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But he's not my next one. My last one is actually, it's gonna be DJ Chark. Again, I am not sold on DJ Chark. He had 5 really good games last year. He had an okay rookie season. 5 fantastic games last year to start the season, and his last 11 games, well, I did have a couple good games in there. They weren't like, it was like the tale of 2 halves, except there was a 1/3 and 2/3. It was rough, to say the least. I I don't like him, especially for where he's being drafted at. He's fine, and I think he could make the leap. However, he's just as likely to not in my book. So with that, I don't like him much. His ADP is, let me pull up the ADP site real quick. He's getting drafted really, really high, whereas like guys like Amari Cooper are within 10 spots of him on the wide receiver. Cooper Kupp is only a few spots in front of him. We have A.J. Brown and Robert Woods a couple spots ahead of him. And guys behind him are like Keenan Allen. We have Cortland Sutton, who is significantly further back than him. And I have way more faith in Cortland Sutton than I do DJ Chark. And guys like him, like Stephon, I even have more faith in Stephon Diggs, Devontae Parker. Those guys are behind him too. And even if you go back like 20 spots, you can get a guy like Michael Gallup, who isn't great, but I feel like he's just as good as Chark. And he's like 20 receiver spots behind him. So for where Chark's at, I don't like him. I know you like Chark, but to me, I'm not a big fan of him.
Yeah, he's a little dangerous, but I think he's going to be good.
Especially like 2 or 3 receivers in front of him on the ADP is Robert Woods, like the safest guy on earth. And Robert Woods at his safest is just as good as DJ Chark has been at his best. So at that point, I'm not even big on Robert Woods, but I'd rather have him over DJ Chark.
All right, and with that is going to wrap up our wide receiver episode today. We are going to be back next week with a quarterback and tight end podcast for sure.
Ooh.
I'm not sure if those are 1 or 2 or how we're going to do it, but be prepared to see those next week. You can, as always, find us on our different mediums at...
You can find us where you always find us, and that is finishfirstmedia.com. That's finishfirstmedia.com, the greatest website to ever be developed. And don't believe me? Go click on it. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. And if you like this video, if you are watching this on a YouTube or just a video format, make sure to give it that like and even give it a share. If you like it, give it a share because you want people to see it. If you don't like it and you think this is a load of nonsense, give it a share so that you can mislead your other teammates in your fantasy league as well.
All right, and that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And as we mentioned, we're still trying to get better every episode. So I believe we had an audio mix-up last week, and we had a camera shaking the first week.
Do you think we're succeeding?
We're kind of regressing, and not enough data to determine that yet. But
we're still determining the mean.
We'll get it figured out.
Make sure to let us know in the comments.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Bye.